The Boston Red Sox have to do everything they possibly can to get Corbin Burnes in a Boston Red Sox uniform after missing out on yet another top free agent.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And want to know the best part? It's all completely free. And even though the Red Sox are making us all very mad once again when it comes to the offseason so far, you can tune in and be angry with me on any podcast platform. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the show. Hope you're getting through that middle of the week grind okay. And while we try to navigate through the rest of this week, the Red Sox better figure out what it is they're doing when it comes to free agency and the rest of this offseason. As they did recently miss out on left-handed free agent starter Max Fried to the Yankees of all teams, who gave him an 8-year, $218 million deal. That's a pretty mega contract, but that's the market these days. He is 30 years old, and so is Corbin Burnes. So now that Burnes saw what Fried got, he's going to be asking for a ton of money too. And I have said on record on the show before that I'm not necessarily saying Max Fried was my top choice, because he definitely wasn't. Would it have been nice to get him? Absolutely. Would not be complaining if Fried was a Boston Red Sox, but he's not an ace. He's more of a number 2 right now. So I had already said that if the Red Sox bring in Fried, I still need to see them bring in somebody else too that can pitch at the top of the rotation. So am I bummed that they missed out on Fried? Yes, but I'm also very frustrated with the fact that the Red Sox are missing out on guys. I mean, obviously Juan Soto with the Mets, and in the long run, that may be beneficial for the Red Sox if they make the right moves to adjust the other areas of need for the team. And missing out on Max Fried, because could you imagine if they brought in Burnes and Fried and they had Corbin Burnes as the ace and Fried as the number 2 with Houck as the 3? That's a really solid 3, and then it takes a lot more pressure off of Bayo to have to pitch very well, since he was very off and on in 2024. So the circumstances could have been there, but the Red Sox's offer to Max Fried was really far off what the Yankees offered him. So that makes you wonder how serious they actually are. And my biggest problem right now with the Red Sox is that they seem to be shying away from these massive deals. And that's an issue. If they want to compete, they're going to have to accept that they're going to overpay somebody. It just is what it is. I mean, is Fried overpaid? Absolutely. I mean, the guy's 30 years old, but so is Corbin Burnes. And Burnes to me is an ace. He's a guy that I've been wanting from the start here. Even before free agency started, I said, get Corbin Burnes to Boston in 2025. He is a very solid pitcher who pitched to a 2.92 ERA this past season with a 15-9 record over 32 games that he started. And I like the consistency that he displays, because he is a guy who you didn't have to worry about a lot throughout the course of the season in terms of what he would give you, whereas some other pitchers showed a lot of inconsistency, but Burnes is a pretty consistently dominant starter. So the Red Sox need to do everything in their power to get him to Boston, because now at this point, they're looking at a scenario in which the big names are coming off the board between Blake Snell and Max Fried, guys who both would have been really solid additions to the Red Sox starting rotation that now they need to look elsewhere and do what they can to get the best guys available. Walker Buehler is also another option that people aren't really talking about as much. He, to me, would be a number 2 behind Corbin Burnes, but even so, again, another guy who could help the Red Sox rotation. It would be completely unacceptable if the Red Sox go into the season with the rotation looking like Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, Lucas Giolito, and maybe Cooper Criswell. That is just not a winning rotation, and that's a team that probably finishes around 500 again. Maybe even worse than that if one of those players regresses. So they are not in a fantastic spot right now, but they need to try to accept the fact that guys are going to be overpaid. And I'm not just talking about the biggest caliber of players. I'm talking about players across the market. The more that they see what other guys are getting, the more they're going to be demanding something similar. And as soon as Breslow and Henry and Sam Kennedy and company all figure that out, the better off they will be when it comes to committing to somebody like Corbin Burnes. I don't care how much Corbin Burnes costs. Get this man in a Boston Red Sox uniform. He is a true ace to me, somebody who shows that consistency and can eat innings and can be that number 1 starter that the Red Sox have been coveting. Now, you might have to commit a lot of years to somebody like him, but bringing in Corbin Burnes would not only solidify the fact that the Red Sox are determined about winning and they are serious about wanting to get back into contention, but it will also naturally draw more free agents to Boston in the future if Burnes comes here. Because from an outside perspective, if I'm looking at the Red Sox as a player, I'm saying, what reason would I have to sign with Boston when there are other teams in better spots that I could sign with instead? And that's what happens when you don't take it seriously for a few years and you are focusing a lot on developing your farm system, but not focusing at all on the major league team and improving that roster. That is exactly what happens. And you get these free agents who go on the market and Boston is no longer a destination. So to Corbin Burnes, I'm looking at it as I could go back to the Orioles, a team that I went to the playoffs with last year, and they had injuries, but could still be a contending team if healthy. Or I'm looking to go to the West Coast. Maybe I get an offer from another team out there like the San Francisco Giants or San Diego Padres, teams who play in much warmer areas than Boston. And the Padres especially are further along right now than the Red Sox are in terms of being able to contend. So from his perspective, I'm not choosing Boston. But on the same token, money talks. And if the Red Sox go out there and blow everybody else out of the water with an offer, then he's not going to say no, because at the end of the day, we have to remember that he is a Scott Boras client. So Boras is going to try to get him what he wants financially and make sure that he gets the bag. So if the Red Sox continue to push and make him an offer that he absolutely cannot refuse, then I don't see him going somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, obviously these guys want to win, but they want to get paid. And if the Red Sox show that they are serious about wanting to pay him, then I could see Boston being a fit for him. Now, that being said, we have to question whether this is on Breslow, because John Henry did show that he's willing to dish out money this offseason by throwing a $700 million offer at Juan Soto. So the whole breaking the checkbook thing open, that could be the case. Like maybe John Henry gave Breslow the green light to make these deals with big time players, but Breslow is struggling to close the deal. And that's something that I'm going to be looking out for as we progress through the rest of free agency, as the Red Sox maintain their interest, the most common word associated with the Red Sox organization, in players around the league, is the issue that Breslow is incapable of pulling that trigger and closing the deal and making sure the negotiation process is going in the Red Sox favor. I think we'll start to learn more over time who that is a reflection of, that the Red Sox are struggling to get guys. But this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise because, again, like I said, the Red Sox are not as much of a destination anymore as they used to be. But Corbin Burnes, big strikeout guy, can be an ace, and he's consistent on the mound. And he is a guy who I've been wanting in Boston this whole time. So they have to do absolutely everything that they possibly can to get him. And if they don't get him, again, people will be in an absolute uproar. And they've dug themselves into a hole that could be hard for them to get out of. Are they in panic mode now when it comes to their offseason? You'll find out more next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. FanDuel is a great way to make tons of money betting on a lot of different sports. So if you are the type of person who just wants to win money and you like to watch a lot of different sports in general, use FanDuel as that excuse to tell yourself, I can go out there and watch 3 games at a time because I have to check and see if these bets hit. Now, other people might look at you like you're crazy, like I sometimes do with my husband when he makes his bets on FanDuel and he gets so serious about it. But this is real money that could absolutely change your life because FanDuel's payouts are great. So don't waste another second to download the FanDuel app while you're on your phone listening to this episode. Are the Boston Red Sox in panic mode now when it comes to their offseason? That is a question that is being asked among the baseball and Red Sox community right now. And this was a fear of mine, was the Red Sox focusing too much on 1 or 2 players and not really exploring the rest of their options right away, and then missing out on those players and ending up in panic mode to where, okay, we just have to throw money at whoever to make the fans look like we are trying and we are making an effort to get some big names to play in Boston. So one thing that I fear about all of this is that they, as a front office, are getting stressed because now there's the Alex Bregman situation, and it has been reported that there is some internal division, that Sam Kennedy and Alex Cora really want Bregman in Boston, but Craig Breslow and some other members of the front office are in a disagreement on that and don't really want Bregman. So now the front office has this division on how to handle the Alex Bregman situation, if they bring him in or not. And that, to me, is an absolute joke. You as a front office cannot be having these debacles during the winter meetings. You as a front office need to know, okay, we have our plan A. If plan A doesn't work out, this is our plan B. And then this is our plan C. Hopefully it doesn't get to that. But you need to know these are the players that we are going to pursue, and these are the players we are not going to pursue. And it's really disheartening and concerning to me that there seems to be some division in the front office now, because based on how Alex Cora was talking just the other day, he made it out to be like the front office was on the same page about the direction of the franchise and where they were going and the players that they wanted to try to commit to and speak to a lot during these winter meetings. And he made it seem like everybody has the same goals in mind, which, yes, maybe they do have the same long-term goals, obviously, which is to win and have them all work together to find the best combination of players that can make that happen. So obviously there's a discrepancy there. You have a couple people who really like Bregman, see the upside and want him in Boston, and some people who don't. And my guess for the people who don't would be that they don't want to commit multiple years to him over a long period of time, because they have some very talented infield prospects that are going to be coming up in the next couple of years. So they don't want to have to commit long-term to Bregman when they have these guys coming up. And in that regard, I do get that. I actually discussed it on yesterday's show, that one thing that could hold them back from acquiring Bregman is the impressive number of infield prospects that they have that they're waiting to have come up. But this cannot be something that comes up during the winter meetings that they're in disagreements over certain players. And honestly, the fact that it was even reported is crazy and came out publicly. So I do wonder if there's been some debacle in the front office over what kinds of players they're trying to pursue, because it's no mystery that they need a right-handed bat and a good one at that. It's no mystery that they need pitching. I think when it comes to the general needs of the team, everybody's on the same page. But when it comes to looking further down to this more detailed scope of things, do they not have the right types of players in mind to acquire? And I still feel like, even though they said that they've heard out the fans and they are ready to have this big offseason this year, obviously we can't place judgment until it's over. But so far, they haven't made any deals with big free agents. And granted, I will give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, because I kept saying Soto's market was going to have the rest of the market heat up. And I still feel like that's the case. I feel like now that Soto signed somewhere and people see what kind of contract he got, that other players are going to start to make their decisions about where they want to go based on what they're offered. So from that standpoint, I can't really fault the Red Sox. I just think it was the market in general was being held up. But if they continue to go through these next few weeks and more big players are coming off the board and the Red Sox continue to miss out, then they are going to be in a really tough spot where they're going to be looked at by the fan base and just people across the baseball community in general as a joke, as frauds, and as an organization that doesn't live up to the expectations that they set. And again, if we come to find out at the end of all of this that they generally tried and gave it their best effort for everybody that they were pursuing, and players just chose to go elsewhere, then okay, so be it. But you can still look back at the last few years and say, okay, we didn't focus enough on the major league team. So now it's coming back and biting us because players don't want to come play in Boston. So their best bet now might be to focus on a trade for a starting pitcher, and it's going to possibly cost them some of their biggest names in the farm system, because they had kept talking about how Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, Kyle Teal, and Roman Anthony were not movable. Now, more recent reports have come out and said that the Red Sox are willing to trade Marcelo Meyer. And I think it's because they are starting to hit the panic button of, we need to fix our starting rotation, and we might have to dig into our top prospects in order to do so. And the thing I have such a hard time with is that because they shied away from paying the top free agents over the last few years, they are now stuck in this scenario where they have a ton of holes in the roster, but free agents don't want to come because they don't have a lot of other notable names there. And so as a result, they might have to overpay or trade for somebody and give up a package where it seems like they got fleeced for an ace caliber starter. And even with Garrett Crochet, it seems like the Red Sox aren't heavily interested in a trade for him at this point. And I think it's because the White Sox asked for Roman Anthony and the Red Sox said he's not movable. So it seems like those two teams aren't going to come to an agreement on that. But a player like Dylan Cease, who they'll have to pay a price for, they might now have to dig a little bit deeper into the future than they wanted to originally. And that's really upsetting because they worked so hard to build up this farm system to get these key prospects in there, that now they're sitting here saying, well, what do we do? Because no free agents want to come here. So we might have to make a trade to put us in the conversation of being a contending team in 2025. But we don't want to give up these types of players. So this all goes back to the Red Sox of the last 3 seasons. It is on them. This is 100% their fault that they didn't invest enough in the major league team. And I kept saying over and over again, I am all for trying to build your farm system and get some excellent prospects in there, which they did during Chaim Bloom's tenure for sure. Like, I will give them that. They got some really talented prospects in the system. But when they were doing that, they should have spent more time building up the major league team and focusing on that. And that's something that they failed to do, was prioritize getting players on the major league roster. And they were just okay with last place finishes and being a less than mediocre baseball team and not making adjustments to the major league team, really, because they were just too invested on the minor league levels. Now, you obviously need good prospects in your system. I'm not saying that's not important, but look, they're paying the price for it now with guys going elsewhere. And with Juan Soto, I mean, he's an example. The Red Sox offered about $700 million to him, and he took more than that from the Mets. But if the Red Sox had offered that amount, but were more attractive in terms of where the major league team is at right now, I think there was a much better chance that he comes to Boston. But he probably saw the situation and said, yeah, you obviously have some young talent in your farm system, but what do I do right now? I want to win now. I was just in the World Series. I want to be back there. So at the end of the day, the Red Sox are seemingly starting to hit the panic button, where I think they're going to toss a crazy amount of money at Corbin Burnes. Honestly, at this point, I don't care how much he costs. I just want him in Boston. Or they're going to make a trade for a starting pitcher and give up a lot more than they ever would have wanted to over the last few seasons, because they wasted too much time not investing in the major league roster. So they're in a tough spot right now. Are they in panic mode? I don't think so yet, because there are still plenty of names on the board, but I think it's getting to that point where they could be hitting that panic button, especially if they find out that Corbin Burnes signs elsewhere over these next couple days. Because if he goes elsewhere, then they know, okay, we're not getting an ace caliber starter on the free agent market, so we need to give up as many assets as we can that a certain team wants to be able to get an ace caliber stud from their pitching staff. They have no choice but to go all out now. They put themselves in this position and nobody will believe it until it actually happens. So got to go out and spend the money and do what they can to build a contending team. While trying to build a contending team, the Red Sox also did not catch a break at all when it came to the MLB Draft lottery. So I'm going to be discussing that next. If you're looking to listen to podcasts about other Boston sports teams, be sure to check out Locked On Celtics, Locked On Bruins, and Locked On Patriots, all of which are Monday through Friday shows, just like Locked On Red Sox. You can stay up to date with what's going on with those teams. And at least Boston has the Celtics, right? The defending champs, and looking like a team that has a really good shot to repeat. I mean, who doesn't love the Boston Celtics right now in our community? So make sure that if you want to stay up to date with the Celtics, that you tune into Locked On Celtics Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also tune into Locked On Bruins and Locked On Patriots on those same platforms, as well as the Locked On College shows like Locked On Boston College. So make sure that you follow all of our talented shows and Locked On hosts, because I am telling you, we have so many people at this network who are incredibly good at what they do, and they deserve the listens. And I do appreciate you always tuning into my show. And if you want more interaction with me or want to hear something specific on the show, make sure to let me know. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabby Maljanian 10. You can follow me on Instagram at Gabby_Maljanian 10. And you can follow the show on Twitter at LO_Red Sox. And I will be there to help answer questions or entertain show topics that you want to hear in particular, or even just interact and vent about how frustrating the past few off seasons have gone for this team. So make sure that you subscribe to all of that and that you check out the other Locked On shows as well. The MLB Draft lottery took place on Tuesday during the winter meetings, and the Red Sox did not exactly end up where they wanted to. They had long odds to land a top 6 pick and ended up beating the odds, but not in the way they would have preferred to. They were jumped by 2 long shots in the draft lottery, bumping them down the board to number 15 overall. The Mariners and Cardinals each of whom had worse lottery odds, landed with the top 6 and will pick number 3 and number 5 overall, respectively. So they basically had worse odds than the Red Sox did to land in that top 6, and they both overtook the Red Sox, and they dropped down even further. The Nationals, who had the 4th best odds, landed the number 1 overall pick. The Angels will pick 2nd, followed by the Mariners, Rockies, Cardinals, and Pirates. By virtue of finishing 81-81 and with the 13th worst record in MLB, the Red Sox had a 1.22% chance of winning the top pick and a 13.1% chance of landing inside the top 6. The Rockies and Marlins were tied for the best odds at 22.5%, followed by the Angels, Nationals, and Blue Jays. And then the Cardinals had an 8.9% chance of landing a top 6 picks, and the Mariners' odds were just 6%. The Marlins were easily the lottery's biggest loser, though, falling outside the top 6 entirely, despite their highly favorable odds, which is kind of a Marlins thing to do. As of late, they have just been seriously struggling as an organization the last few years. Despite enduring one of the worst seasons in MLB history, the White Sox were not eligible for this year's lottery because they pay money into the league's revenue sharing program and received a lottery pick in 2024. And the A's, who receive revenue sharing money and earned lottery picks each of the last 2 years, were also ineligible. They will pick number 10 and 11, respectively. So the full lottery results ended up with the Nationals at 1, Angels at 2, Mariners at 3, Rockies 4, Cardinals 5, Pirates 6, Marlins 7, Blue Jays 8, Reds 9, White Sox 10, A's 11, Rangers 12, Giants 13, Rays 14, Red Sox 15, Twins 16, Cubs 17, and Diamondbacks 18. So that's the order of when teams will pick in the upcoming draft. Now, was it annoying that the Red Sox dropped down to 15? Yes. But ultimately, what's important to remember about the MLB draft is you draft for need less than you draft the best players available. So in a sport like football, you are drafting based on your needs at the time as a professional team. Whereas in baseball, because there are so many levels before you even get to the majors, you just draft the best player on the board at the time because it takes a lot to develop a player before they're ready to go to the majors. So if you're in Major League Baseball, you don't sit here and say, oh, the Red Sox really need a right fielder, so let's take a right fielder in this draft class, because you don't know if/when that player is even going to make it up to the majors. So when it comes to the Red Sox picking at 15, no, they won't get the best player available in the draft class, but they'll get who's available at the time, and they could develop the player and have him be a complete stud in a few years. You really don't know. So the draft is kind of a crapshoot as it is. So yes, am I bummed that the Red Sox don't get to pick a little bit higher up? Yes, but not to the point where it's the end of the world, because it's so hard to know how a player is going to pan out when they get drafted, because there are so many levels they have to get through first and so much of their game that needs to continue to grow before they actually go into the majors. And not even to mention that guys could get drafted out of high school and choose to not sign with the team and end up going to college instead. So then the draft pick doesn't even matter, and what order you picked in at that point doesn't even matter. So it doesn't weigh as heavily as you might think it would, but it would be nice for the Red Sox to have had a better pick because of the fact that they are trying to overload that farm system still. And yes, they've brought back a lot of competitiveness when it comes to their minor league system as a whole. But if I am the Red Sox, I am making sure that, despite the draft, I'm still trying to build up that prospect pool and, signing international free agents, and via trade, if there's an opportunity for the Red Sox to trade somebody they don't really need on the team anymore and get a big time prospect to add to their roster, I'm doing that too. So with this whole thing with the draft lottery, it goes to show that, a lot of it is luck. You don't really need to be the worst team with the worst record always to pick first. But even so, it's a crapshoot. And with all of this talk of the Red Sox fixing the major league team, which they absolutely do 100% have to do this offseason, they still can't forget about the farm system altogether. And if there's an opportunity for them to acquire a player to join their farm system who is likely going to be a stud when they get to the majors, if they feel really confident about that, then they definitely shouldn't close the door on that either. There's a way to balance both, make sure you have that deep farm system, and also make sure your major league team is at its best. I mean, the Dodgers have shown it. They've shown that they can win at the major league level and that they have a wide prospect pool that's very deep with a lot of really talented players. And I think the Red Sox could be that. Just need to find that better balance and not put all their eggs into either the major league team or the farm system. They need to find a good mix of both so that they can then go out there and be able to compete at all levels, not just one. So we will see what happens in the MLB draft. The Red Sox are going to start looking at prospects and kids that they would be interested in drafting. But until then, they absolutely have to focus for the rest of this offseason and bring in the guy who is going to be a difference maker. And they need to make a big splash. They have not made a single big splash yet. I do not count Aroldis Chapman a big splash. Get one of the high-end guys, show that you're not willing to throw money out there and pay, and get the job done. That's what I will say on that for now. But I do appreciate you tuning in to Locked On Red Sox and making it your first listen today. Next, you can listen to Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date with all things going on across the league. So if you want to hear more about what's going on around Major League Baseball, his show is the place for you. So check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.